Bill O'Reilly loves to take out his aggression on Black Lives Matter. He's always talking very negatively about them. You're not going to be surprised by that. I've got a couple of clips for you, but then he talks about Martin Luther King and what he would do. And there I've got quotes from Martin Luther King that I think you're going to want to see. So first, here's O'Reilly talking about Black Lives Matter.
All right, Cenk, let's do this.
Enter American law enforcement, which is now under siege for allegedly treating black Americans more harshly than white Americans. Talking Points does not believe there is a design campaign of prejudice. What is happening here is cause and effect. Because black Americans commit far more crimes proportionally than whites or other ethnic groups, they come into contact with police more often. And that contact sometimes turns volatile.
Let's break that down in a couple of ways. Number one, see, it's not the cops' fault for stopping African Americans more disproportionately, as we've proven in every study. Stop and frisk in New York, disproportionate stops all over the country. I gave you all those stats on yesterday's show.
Cenk, that's irrelevant. Just because they're stopped disproportionately more doesn't negate his point. He basically said that is like they're stopped more because they commit more crime statistically and disproportionately. Are you just going to ignore that?
But no, it's that it's black people's fault for being more violent and being more criminal. So if they got shot, they kind of had it coming. Now this guy is going to pretend to be on Martin Luther King's side in a second. And secondly, I just wanted to give you an explanation of the rhetorical trick that he used. There he said, now, talking points memo. First of all, dude, your talking points memo. Stop referring to it as if it's a human being. Talking points memo says that believes that there is not a coordinated effort by design campaign of prejudice by police all across the country. That's a straw man. Nobody said there was a designed campaign of prejudice. It's not like the police chief in St. Louis called the one in Dallas, that called the one in San Antonio, and the one in Miami. And they're like, all right, let us now design it. Let's design a campaign of prejudice. Everybody, it's go time.
Cenk, you're taking what he says way too literally. Of course, you're mocking example of the police departments getting together and be like, all right, this initiate Operation Hate Black People. Like, of course, shit like that isn't happening. And no one's saying it is, but what he's basically saying is within the Black Lives Matter movement, there is a stigma against the police where they do believe that the police just hate black people. They target black people disproportionately more. We're not going to get into why, but yeah, they do it, so it's bad. Like, I truly believe you are being ignorant on purpose. This is just some cognitive dissonance going on, Cenk, where you know what he's trying to say, but what he's saying actually kind of makes sense. And I'm in the same situation. I can't believe I'm actually defending Bill O'Reilly. But what he said so far, I don't know what he said in the past or what he's going to say in the rest of this video, but what he said so far is just, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, what we talk about on the show all the time, what Black Lives Matter is concerned about is unconscious bias. And yes, sometimes there's overt racism, of course. But we're not saying that there's a global conspiracy about it. So he puts up that straw man of like, they think that all the cops got together and decided to be racist against black people. No, they don't think that. In fact, there's study after study that shows the unconscious bias. In fact, I've got 5 studies for you later in this program that proves unconscious bias. Not just by police officers, but unfortunately by almost all Americans. It doesn't make them bad people. We're trying to get you to see the reality so that we can fix it. O'Reilly doesn't want you to fix it because he doesn't quite really mind the current situation.
I don't subscribe to this thought process of unconscious bias. He said in all Americans. So, just all Americans, just they have a bias against black people, Doesn't make them bad people. We just want you to realize that. So, no, Cenk. I think the majority of Americans don't have a bias against black people. I think the majority of Americans just see the stats and be like, oh, black people commit more crime per capita than any other race. That's a problem. That's not unconscious bias. That's just the reality of things. So you're talking about, oh, we want you to see the reality. It's like, well, you clearly don't. You want to paint your own little picture of black people are just disproportionately arrested more and encountered by the police more, and that's bad. But then you just ignore why all of that stuff happens. The stuff you're ignoring is the reality. The stuff you're saying is fiction.
So now one more before we get to MLK.
With all due respect to President Obama, well-meaning activists do not associate themselves with a group that often commits violent acts and encourages violence through irresponsible rhetoric.
Okay, total nonsense. They love to throw out that lie so people say, oh, no, Black Lives Matter is violent. I heard it on the Bill O'Reilly show. Do you know that the guy who actually did the shooting in Dallas, who he is now trying to connect to these black movements, was actually rejected by a lot of these movements? He was nowhere near Black Lives Matter. Dallas police chief says he had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter.
Okay, Cenk, so let's say you're right, and the Dallas shooter had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. Okay, that still doesn't take away from the fact that Black Lives Matter is a violent group. I mean, look at the Baltimore riots. Black people burning down businesses from their own community because another black person who was a thug, I'll have you know, was shot and killed, and they rioted. That's not exactly a peaceful movement, if you ask me. Burning down businesses, and also chanting during protest to kill all cops, or what do we want? Dead pigs. When do we want them now? Or pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. You know, this isn't exactly a peaceful movement.
Well, let me actually quote Dr. King for you, and let's see how that turns out. So O'Reilly says, no, Dr. King was not in favor of these kind of vociferous protests. No, he believed in bringing people together and being moderate. Take it easy. Don't go around protesting things like this. He was a very calm guy. All right, well, let's find out. Martin Luther King said, I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society, which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn the riots. So he did condemn the riots. That's part of why he was such a great leader. But he said the conditions that led to those riots must be equally condemned. Do I see Fox News Channel doing that?
No, I don't see Fox News doing that. But when you're looking at the Baltimore riots, the Ferguson riots in Baltimore, what was the reason for that? Yeah, we should condemn the riot, but should we condemn the reason why it started? No, because the reason why it started was because a police officer defended himself against Michael Brown, and he shot him in defense. So yeah, like, I'm not going to condemn the police officer or the police in general for that situation that started a riot. I'm going to condemn the riot itself and the people who participated, but I'm not going to condemn the action that caused it. It's stupid, Cenk.
Bill O'Reilly coming out and going, these protests, I mean, they have such a legitimate grievance, and I am super upset about what's happening to black people in this country. I haven't seen that segment on Talking Points memo yet.
I think the reason why he isn't coming out and agreeing with the protests themselves is because he obviously doesn't agree with why they're doing it. And this will be the first time in my entire life, but I'm on Bill O'Reilly's side. I don't agree with why these protests are taking place. They're acting like racist white cops are just shooting black people all the time, when in fact more white people are shot, and black people have more encounters with the police because they commit more crime on average than any other race. That's nothing to protest about. It's just they if they look at the facts and the statistics, they will see. Okay, well, we shouldn't protest about police shooting black people. Like, why should you focus more on a police officer either doing his job poorly or not? Yeah, you should protest sometimes when an unjustified killing is done by the police, but so a lot of the time it isn't. A lot of these major examples that have cropped up in the news, just they haven't been what the Black Lives Matter movement have said they've been, which is just an innocent unarmed black man being shot. A lot of it is, whether he's armed or not, it doesn't matter. Like, they could be, a lot of them are resisting arrest, attacking the police officer, you know. That calls for a justified, you know, shooting, really, of that black person. But Cenk's he's just ignoring that. He just sees the surface level of this and is like, oh, this is a terrible thing, black people are being shot. Black people just have it awful in America. But he doesn't want to look deeper and see why these things are happening.
All right, but I've got a lot more for you. So he said King did, freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Now, of course, whenever you go to do that today, who opposes you? Bill O'Reilly saying, no, take it easy. First of all, calling me an oppressor, calling any police in the country oppressors, outrageous. Calling the government, calling the authorities oppressors, outrageous. And you can't demand anything. Just bow your head and know your role. Yeah, MLK would have been on your side, probably.
Cenk, you've just committed the very fallacy you accused Bill O'Reilly of doing. You just committed a straw man. Not once did he say people cannot demand anything from their government, whether it's a right or anything like that. He didn't even mention anything even close to that, Cenk. You're committing a straw man. You don't want to actually address his actual arguments with regard to the crime rates. So you just go straight to, oh, you're not allowed to demand anything. You can't believe the government's oppressive or anything like this. You can't do any of these things that I didn't say. It's like, you're insane, Cenk. You're just lying now. Before it was just ignoring statistics and what he's saying. Now you're just outright lying. You're mischaracterizing his argument.
But hold, because I want you to know who the real Martin Luther King was. Because Martin Luther King believed in nonviolence. He believed in civil disobedience. But that didn't make him weak. That didn't make him a moderate. He wanted action, and he wanted it immediately. He fought against what he called the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. So let me tell you who the real MLK is, so this guy can't lie about him anymore.
I mean, you're accusing him of a liar. Yeah, all he said was Martin Luther King wouldn't be a part of Black Lives Matter, wouldn't go to any of their protests. And then you just go on and say how Martin Luther King was non-violent. Okay, what are Black Lives Matter? They are violent. You know, just even that one little fact alone, why would he want to involve himself in a violent movement when he himself fought heroically against racism in America, peacefully? He didn't advocate any violence, he didn't commit any violence. Black Lives Matter are doing that. They're not just calling for violence, they're committing violent acts. So, I agree. I don't think Martin Luther King would be part of the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, who would? What peaceful protester would want to be part of a movement that calls for killing police officers?
The idea that these guys would have the audacity to try to claim that they're on Martin Luther King's side is sickening, revolting. I'm not done yet. 2 more quotes from King. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. And it has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. Now that was the real Martin Luther King. That was powerful, and it worked.
It did work, Cenk. You're right. Why did it work? Well, the fact that it was a peaceful movement is probably a massive reason for it. You know, the white men in power back then were like, wait, these black people aren't the savages that we believe them to be, you know. They want their freedom, and they are peacefully protesting for it. They are doing whatever it takes except go into violence in order to get what they want. And then they gave it to them. Black Lives Matter today has pretty much skipped the peaceful part of Martin Luther King's ideas. It pretty much skipped them altogether and was like, okay, forget that. We're going to go straight to the violence, straight to the riots, straight to the killings. That is why Martin Luther King would not be for Black Lives Matter. He himself would be against it because he would not agree with their methods, their violent methods in order to get what they want, which isn't even a justified thing to want because what they want is fiction. What they're complaining about isn't happening. Black people are being targeted more by the police because they commit more crime. There's a reason. Back then in Martin Luther King's time, what he was protesting for was equality, was freedom, was justice. And they didn't have that back then. That's why he protested for it. And he won. They got it. That's why today these black people, they're equal to every other race. Martin Luther King succeeded. These people have what they have today because of people like him. But they don't acknowledge that. They still believe that they're oppressed. And our black people are just, we're so poor, we're so bad off in this world, in America. Police are killing us. You know, it's not to do with the extremely disproportionate high crime rates that we commit. It's just the white man, you know, racism or things like that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know if I can handle any more Cenk for a while. I've done a few videos on him now. But yeah, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe and comment. And if you didn't like it and you disagreed with me, please comment why, and we can have a discussion of why you think it is I'm wrong. Thank you for watching. This has been the last Reptilian. Farewell.